There are 7,117 known languages in the world today, but only 195 countries. So that's a bit of a maths mystery, isn't it? Somewhere, someone is speaking a heck of a lot more languages than they're telling us about. So where are all these languages hiding? Well, let's find out. And at the end, I'll tell you about a language that has as few words as a toddler's vocabulary. For real. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Ollie Richards, and this channel is all about helping you learn a new language quickly through the power of story so you can become fluent faster and live your best life. Now, in fifth place is a country that may surprise you. This country has 311 spoken languages, and it's none other than the good old US of A. Perhaps most Americans you know only speak English, and perhaps a little bit of Spanish here and there, but there are 175 indigenous languages and another 100 plus immigrant languages. It is, after all, a land of immigrants. We knew that. Name your language, America probably has it. But what about all those indigenous languages? Well, even though so many have been lost along the way, tragically, each of these has something special about them, like Navajo, which has more than 170,000 speakers and is by far the biggest of the US indigenous languages. Then you get Sioux, which has all these dialects and subdialects like Lakota, and Cherokee, probably the most extensively documented indigenous language in the country. It's supposedly very difficult for native English speakers to learn Cherokee, as they have this thing called sentence words, where an entire sentence can be one very long word. Like this Cherokee word on screen here, meaning I was seeing something facing me. But a native language you're less likely to know about is Gwich'in, and you're going to have to forgive my pronunciation there, which is severely endangered, and it sounds so cool. If you agree that it sounds cool, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Let's go to country number 4, which probably won't surprise you at all. It is India. Now, India's official languages are Hindi and English, but altogether they have at least 427 languages. I can kind of see that. It's a pretty big country, right? And India is an interesting one because apart from Hindi and English, they also have 22 other big languages spread out between the states. You may have heard of some of them: Bengali, Urdu, Kashmiri, Punjabi.
ਤੇ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਦੋਸਤਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਬੋਲਣਾ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਪਰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਰਮ ਜੀ ਆਵਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇਸਮਾ ਪਰ ਮੈਂ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੁਣ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਨਾ ਬੋਲੇ ਕਰਾਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਗਾਉਂ ਦੀ ਭਾਸ਼ਾ ਬੋਲੇ ਕਰਾਂ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਚੱਕਰ ਆ ਉਹ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਐ ਸਮਝਦੇ ਆ ਵੀ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਅਨਪੜ੍ਹ ਗਵਾਰ ਆ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਬੋਲਦਾ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਉਹ ਬੋਲਦਾ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਤਾਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਰਮ ਆਵਾ ਪਰ ਮੈਂ ਹੁਣ ਥੋੜਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਬਦਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਮੈਂ ਪੂਰੀ ਗਾਉਂ ਦੀ ਭਾਸ਼ਾ ਬੋਲੇ ਕਰਾਂਗਾ ਮੈਂ
Then you get the classical languages like Tamil at 5,000 years old. It's one of the oldest surviving languages in the world, and millions still speak it. Pretty cool. But a little over 3% of India's people speak small ethnic languages, and some of these really are quite well hidden, like one very rare and unique language called Koro, spoken by a hill tribe in the northeastern mountains. When a bunch of adventurous linguists in bamboo rafts discovered these guys in 2010, they realized the villagers were speaking something unique, not even similar to the neighboring languages. It must have been pretty exciting. Now, next up, the country with the third most languages spoken. And for this, we're going to take a giant leap all the way down to Africa. And the destination is Nigeria. Now, in Nigeria, they use English as a lingua franca. And they also have 3 national languages: Hausa, Lugbo, and Yoruba. But altogether, there are more than 520 languages. They say that Yoruba is the most difficult to learn, with some words having as many as 11 meanings. It sounds like they're giving English a run for its money there. But Hausa in particular is very useful and is widely understood by people in surrounding countries too. Here's a guy singing in Hausa. Hear anything familiar in there? Well, Hausa has a rich vocabulary borrowed from Arabic, but there's also a lot of Hebrew, Berber, Amharic, and Somali, as well as words from various neighboring languages. So why all the other languages? Well, Nigeria is the most densely populated country in Africa, with more than 250 ethnic groups. So it's not surprising that there are so many smaller languages. But the youth prefer to speak English, especially in urban areas and big cities, and you also hear an English Creole spoken. Although out in the rural areas, people like their traditions and the languages of their roots. which is cool. Most of these languages are endangered though, like Yankam. Now, this language has fewer than 100 speakers left. But how about this village in the south, where the men and the women speak different languages? Yet there are completely different lexicons for boys and girls, and they're immensely proud of this unique trait. Can you imagine that working where you live? So this is what the chief says. In school, the kids first learn the female language, but by age 10, the boys are expected to speak the male language. Otherwise, they're considered abnormal. That's pretty interesting stuff, but we are not done yet with amazing stories. Coming second for most languages in the world is an island nation with a dizzying number of cities, beaches, volcanoes, and mystical rainforests. It is, of course, Indonesia. Now, with a whopping 742 languages spoken daily, quite amazingly, only one of these gets official status, and that is Bahasa Indonesia, or Indonesian to us, which pretty much everyone understands. Now, Indonesia lies in the Pacific Ocean between Asia and Australia and has a lot of islands. You've probably heard of some of them, like Bali, for example. But that is just one of Indo's 17,500 islands. The biggest ethnic group here is the Javanese, and they are on the island of Java. And they sound pretty cool.
Halo Rek, ya apa kabarmu? Jenengku Ayu. Aku ndek Malang wis 4 tahun. Aku iso basa Malangan, tapi aku kudu ono kancane sik ngomong Malang juga. Soale logatku ki campur-campur Rek. Aku iso logat Ngapak, aku iso logat basa Kromo, aku iso logat Jogja. Dadi ya apa ya? Aku ki bingung kadang-kadang lek misale aku ki nganggo basa Jawa, aku kudu nganggo logat apa?
But like the other guys, Indonesia also has hundreds of indigenous languages, some of which are quite tiny with only a couple of hundred speakers, like Bengoy from the Maluku Islands. And before you think of learning a few of these, wrap your head around this. Indonesia's languages also have different writing systems, like at least 12. But don't worry, you can write most of them with the good old Latin alphabet. And here we are, the most linguistically diverse country in the world is Papua New Guinea. Here, there are just 9 million people, but around 850 languages. That's 12% of all the world's languages in a country the size of Spain. Now, if you didn't know, Papua New Guinea is an independent state in Oceania, making up the eastern half of New Guinea. And although it's connected to West Papua, they don't share a language. Now, Papua New Guinea has 3 official languages. There's English, and then there's these other 2, Tok Pisin and Hirimotu. Pronunciation, forgive me please. This is if you don't count Papua New Guinea's sign language, which is also official. But the most widely spoken language here is Tok Pisin, an English Creole.
Me belong Papua New Guinea, born Lomedi, Southern Islands Province. Now me stop long here Lokona.
What do you think? Could you pick that one up on holiday? As for Hirimoto, it is mostly a second language that the older folk use. The kids these days aren't growing up with it, so there are fewer and fewer speakers. It's a simplified version of Motu, which a lot more people spoke before the 70s. Now, Hirimoto developed as a trade language, and it was once called Police Motu, being a common language for the police force. Amazingly, Motu and Hirimoto are mutually unintelligible. So now I'm sure you're wondering where the rest of the 800 and whatever languages fit in. Well, one thing that most people know about Papua New Guinea is that it's very swampy, very jungly, and full of fascinating tribes. Not to mention the mountains. The thing is, these guys have always lived very separately from each other. The tribes locked into their part of the valley or their side of the river or their little island. So their ancient languages never blended much. And plus there was zero foreign influence. Over time, the old languages did some kind of tribal division and made lots more baby languages. So today, the majority of people still live in tribes, and most people speak around 3 languages. Many speak 4 or 5. So talk about a land of natural-born polyglots. And as you may have guessed by now, many of these languages only have a few thousand speakers, like the Solka and the Bougainville languages. All these awesome language names, and we're just learning things like German and Italian over here. Anyway, imagine saying, yeah, I speak Koromida. Haven't heard of it? Oh, it's that one they speak in Bougainville. But now for the extremely small mystery language. If you're lazy and don't care which language you learn, as long as you can learn it in a week, then there is a language spoken in Suriname that has only 340 words. It's called Taki-Taki, or Sranan, and it's an English-based Creole. There are about 550,000 people who speak it, so it must be a fairly useful one.
Ombunku neti berada nangasa aneng fumina hangs. En sinds hij 7 jaar ik ba, mi ben tax ranan tongo ja na damsko na tatakondre. A reden, voor mi ben leria tongo disi. Bika if you kongro bigi na damsko, je jere na alle soorten pressen je jere den man tax ranan tongo.
But I know by now that what you really want to know is, well, which language is going to be easiest for me to learn? Well, in this video, I reveal the very easiest languages for English speakers, and I've done 2 interesting things. I've left out the one really obvious language that everyone includes, and I've added some really cool languages that are not just easy, but fun to learn. So check out this video next.